All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're tackling one of the absolute oldest, most profound philosophical dilemmas in human history. We're asking, if there is a merciful creator out there, why does suffering even exist? Today, we're exploring a deeply fascinating text that offers a grand cosmic framework to answer exactly that. It's going to challenge our everyday assumptions and ask us to look way, way beyond our normal earthly perspective. If you've ever looked at the state of the world and questioned the grand design, well, this analysis is going to be incredibly thought-provoking for sure.
Section 1. The Paradox of Suffering. Why do the good suffer?
To really understand the problem of evil, the source text asks us to look at a deeply relatable scenario. Think about this for a second. Why does a hardworking, genuinely kind elderly mother, after a literal lifetime of toil, have to endure years of painful illness before she passes away? From our earthly standpoint, it feels deeply, fundamentally unfair. After witnessing mass tragedies, like the absolute devastation of World War II, or honestly just seeing good people struggle every single day, a lot of folks naturally conclude that a merciful creator simply couldn't exist. I mean, how can we possibly conclude that the universe or a creator is merciful when we're constantly witnessing this kind of heartbreaking struggle?
And this brilliantly illustrates the flip side of that exact same coin. The text contrasts that suffering mother with the frustrating reality that, very often, the wicked just seem to prosper. People of terrible character easily obtain power, they hoard wealth, they live super comfortably, and they die peacefully with these grand, lavish funerals. Looking at these two extremes, the crushing suffering of the righteous and the easy prosperity of the wicked, it makes the problem of evil feel pretty undeniable. If we just stop right here, the whole system looks entirely broken.
Moving on to Section 2, Reframing the Universe and the 36 Dimensions of Space.
So the text argues that stopping at our limited human perspective is exactly the root of the problem. To understand the grand design, we have to zoom out and look at a vast cosmological framework. According to the source, there are 36-dimensional spaces where life circulates. This hierarchy ranges all the way from the supreme heaven world, down through various celestial realms, right down to the plant world and the netherworld. And look at where humanity sits, literally right in the middle. The spiritual nature of a human is lower than that of gods and Buddhas, but higher than animals and plants. We are, essentially, spiritual middle management.
Because we're stuck right there in the middle, our perspective is highly restricted. From the viewpoint of gods, who, according to the text, know everything in the universe, humans are simply ignorant. From the perspective of Buddhas, we are seen as evil. To celestial beings, we're viewed as short-sighted and foolish. It's a pretty humbling thought, right? It totally contextualizes our worldly struggles by suggesting that we're basically actors on a stage, acting out a play without being allowed to see the whole script or even the rest of the theater.
I absolutely love this analogy from the text. It says to approach the greatest creator through human emotions is nothing more than a blind man trying to describe an elephant by touch. Think about that. We might feel a trunk and think, oh, it's a snake. Or we touch a massive leg and assume it's a tree. Our emotions, our intense anger at injustice, our deep sorrow at illness, they are very real to us, absolutely. But they are just isolated touches on a massive cosmic elephant. We fundamentally lack the visual capacity to step back and see the whole animal.
That brings us to Section 3, the flawed human realm, specifically our ignorance, evil, and short-sightedness.
So if higher beings see us as ignorant and short-sighted, what does that actually look like in practice? Well, the text points out we act kind of like reckless house guests. We mutually slaughter, we pollute our earthly home, and we endlessly chase fleeting pleasures without having a clue about our true cosmic purpose. Let's look at a very specific, highly relevant modern example the source uses to highlight this: genetic engineering. From our strictly human viewpoint, genetic engineering seems like a magnificent achievement, right? Full of boundless prospects for health and progress. But from the perspective of the Creator's order, the text argues this is actually an extremely dangerous and wrongful practice. It frames it as a prime example of human foolishness masquerading as progress. We're out here tinkering with the fundamental code of life without understanding the long-term cosmic consequences.
The text hits us with this vivid, honestly kind of unsettling question to illustrate the danger here. It asks, imagine keeping several dogs at home, and one day they learn how to unlock the door to your bedroom. What would happen then? It's a powerful metaphor for humans crossing technological and biological boundaries that we just aren't spiritually mature enough to handle yet. We're essentially acquiring the master keys to the house without having the necessary wisdom to govern it.
Section 4, The Crucible. Answering the big question of why the good suffer.
Okay, so back to our main dilemma.
Why do the good suffer? The text completely refrains suffering. It insists that suffering is not a punishment. It's not a sign of a random, uncaring universe. Instead, it's a deliberate, highly intentional tempering process designed to prepare us for higher realms. According to this framework, earthly hardship has very specific, very vital goals. It literally forces us to endure what others cannot endure. It aggressively strips away our selfish focus on personal gains and losses, forcing us to cultivate a character built on contribution. Suffering, according to this view, can also actively erase karmic debts we've racked up from past lives. And ultimately, the whole point of this is to qualify for entry into a much higher dimensional space called the 1,000-year world. Basically, hardship is the required tuition fee for our spiritual advancement.
To make this super concrete, the text brings in some heavy-hitting historical analogies to show that even wise human parents deliberately use hardship to cultivate truly capable leaders. It notes that Mao Zedong sent his own son out to farm, to sweat in a factory, and even to go to war, specifically so he would truly taste and understand hardship. Similarly, it claims John F. Kennedy's father actually stopped others from rescuing his son when he was struggling in a river. He supposedly viewed it as a harsh but entirely necessary lesson in resilience for a future president. Now, whether you personally agree with those intense parenting methods or not, the point the source material is making is crystal clear. True foresight and grand vision often require allowing temporary suffering in order to secure a much greater long-term reward.
And the text really doesn't mince words about why this strict cultivation process is so necessary. It delivers this incredibly blunt analogy. The 1,000-year world is a pure land. It cannot casually admit someone, just as a home cannot allow dog feces or chicken droppings in its living room. Just as elite universities require rigorous credentials, or how keeping a clean home requires you to wipe your muddy shoes at the door, higher spiritual realms require a completely purified character. So letting a good person suffer throughout their life isn't cruel. It's the mandatory cleaning process so they actually qualify for admission to a pure land. To let them fall short at the very last moment by just magically removing the hardship, that, the text argues, would be the true cruelty.
Section 5. The Unity of Opposites and Cosmic Balance. This is really the climax of the entire philosophical framework we're looking at today. The text explains that across all 36 of those dimensions, gaining and losing are in a state of absolute, undeniable equilibrium. The crucial rule is simply this: the more one takes, the greater the loss. Remember those wicked people we talked about at the very beginning? The ones who lie, who cheat, and still somehow enjoy lives of immense wealth and comfort? Well, according to this cosmic rule, letting a terrible person enjoy unearned comfort and do whatever they please for an entire lifetime might look like a huge stroke of good fortune to us down here. But in reality, they are simply spending their cosmic blessings in advance. They're recklessly taking now, which absolutely guarantees a massive, devastating spiritual loss later.
What's super fascinating here is how the text connects this entire cosmology back to major historical and religious figures. It points out that this principle of inverse reward isn't some brand new idea. It quotes Jesus saying, "Blessed are you who weep, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to you." It references the Buddha's teachings on actively erasing karmic debt by enduring worldly disrespect, and it quotes Lao Tzu saying, "To give, one must first take." The text is heavily suggesting that all these legendary figures were actually pointing to the exact same cosmic balancing act.
So what does this wisdom look like in action? The text highlights both modern and historical examples of folks who deeply understood this rule and purposefully chose to give away their wealth or voluntarily endure hardship just to maintain their spiritual balance. It mentions Indian ascetics who practice severe hardship, not because they're ignorant, but out of deep, profound cosmic insight. It points to mega-billionaire John D. Rockefeller donating hundreds of millions to charity, and famous actor Jet Li donating massive advertisement earnings straight to Buddhism. They are doing this because they're muddled or confused. The text argues they do it because they've actually perceived the Tao. They've cracked the code. They understand that to gain spiritually, you must intentionally give materially.
Which brings us right back to our final thought. We started this explainer with the tragic image of a suffering mother and the incredibly tough question of how a creator could possibly be merciful. But if we adopt the lens of this text, if we view life not just as a few random decades on Earth, but as a massive, multidimensional journey where our temporary hardships are literally the tempering fires required for eternal rewards and cosmic advancement, well, the entire picture flips upside down. The text asks us to zoom out,
way out, past our raw human emotions and past our super short-term view of success and failure. If the universe perfectly balances every single tier with a profound leap in spiritual evolution, it leaves us with one incredibly provocative question to chew on. Dare we say the Creator is not merciful? That is a framework that will definitely keep you thinking long after this explainer is over. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep exploring.